There is a kind of strength that does not announce itself. It does not compete for attention, it does not chase approval, and it does not rush to defend its name whenever it is questioned. It simply exists, steady and unshaken, as if the noise of the world passes through it without finding anything to grip. Most people misunderstand this kind of strength. They assume silence means absence, that restraint means weakness, that not reacting means not caring. But history, philosophy, and human psychology all point to the opposite conclusion. The strongest individuals in any era are rarely the loudest in the room. They are the ones who have learned a difficult internal discipline to speak only when speech improves their position, to act only when action is necessary, and to remain unmoved when everything around them demands reaction. Stoicism begins exactly here, not in abstract theory, but in a brutal confrontation with reality. You do not control how the world interprets you. You do not control how others speak about you when you are not present. You do not control timing, chaos, economy, politics, or the unpredictable behavior of people. The only domain that has ever truly belonged to you is far smaller and far more demanding. Your judgments, your responses, your discipline, and your willingness to remain aligned with reason when emotion is pulling you elsewhere. Once this is understood deeply, not intellectually but internally, something fundamental shifts. The need to explain everything starts dissolving. The compulsion to react to every insult begins to feel beneath you. The desire to constantly prove yourself starts to look like a kind of internal poverty, a dependence on external validation that weakens your center of gravity. This is where strong people begin to say less, not because they have nothing to say, but because they have learned the cost of unnecessary speech. Every unfiltered reaction is a transfer of power. Every impulsive explanation is an invitation for others to define you. Every emotional response to criticism hands authority over your inner state to someone who may not even deserve access to it. Marcus Aurelius understood this in the middle of the most powerful empire of his time. Surrounded by advisors, enemies, political pressure, and constant scrutiny, he repeatedly returned to one principle. If something is outside your control, it is not worth disturbing your mind over it. Not because it is insignificant, but because your disturbance adds nothing to its resolution. This is where the first discipline of silence begins. Not social silence, but strategic silence. The silence of restraint. The silence that refuses to leak energy into every passing disturbance. The silence that protects focus like armor. Consider how most people live. Their attention is fragmented into 1,000 reactions. A comment online triggers a response. A slight tone in a conversation triggers overthinking. A rumor triggers emotional spiraling. A delay in progress triggers frustration and explanation. They are constantly exporting their energy outward, hoping that external correction will stabilize internal chaos. But Stoic strength reverses this entirely. It collapses the external dependency loop. It says, even if the world misreads me, I will not fracture. Even if I am misunderstood, I will not scatter. Even if I am criticized unfairly, I will not surrender my composure to correct every perception, because perception is infinite and attention is finite. And a mind that tries to correct every perception will never build anything substantial. This is where silence becomes a weapon, not of avoidance, but of preservation. It is the decision to keep energy internalized until it becomes action rather than reaction. Strong people understand that reacting quickly feels powerful, but building slowly is powerful. And those two are not the same thing. There is another layer beneath this, more uncomfortable and more important. Most speech is not communication. It is anxiety disguised as expression. People talk to regulate insecurity. They explain to reduce uncertainty. They defend themselves not to clarify truth, but to soothe emotional discomfort. Stoicism cuts through this illusion. It asks a hard question. Is this necessary, or is this emotional leakage? When you begin filtering your speech through necessity rather than impulse, your entire presence changes. You stop participating in every argument available to you. You stop correcting people who are committed to misunderstanding you. You stop trying to win approval from audiences that are not even aligned with your direction. And slowly, something unexpected happens. Your words begin to carry more weight. Not because they are louder, but because they are rarer. Not because you are speaking more effectively, but because you are speaking from a place that is no longer desperate for validation. This is the beginning of authority. But authority in the Stoic sense is not domination over others. It is dominion over the self. The ability to remain consistent when emotional volatility would normally take over. The ability to hold a direction even when misunderstanding surrounds it. The ability to stay committed to a principle even when it is inconvenient to defend it. At this stage, silence is no longer just restraint. It becomes strategy. You begin to see that revealing too much too early weakens leverage. Explaining your plans too widely disperses focus. Sharing every intention invites interference from people who do not understand the full context of what you are building. Strong people understand timing. They know that not everything internal needs immediate external expression. Some things require gestation in silence, away from commentary, away from prematurity, away from the emotional distortion of outside opinions. This is not secrecy for deception. It is clarity protected from contamination. Now consider another dimension of strength: control over reaction to criticism. Most individuals believe that responding to criticism is a form of defense. In reality, it is often a form of surrender. It implies that the critic has successfully entered your mental space and set the terms of engagement. Stoicism offers a different approach. It does not ask you to ignore reality, but to properly classify it. Is this criticism useful, or is it noise? Is there actionable truth here, or just emotional projection from another person? If there is truth, you adjust without drama. If there is noise, you discard it without engagement. In both cases, you remain in control of your internal state. What weak minds fail to understand is that constant defense creates dependence. If you must always respond, always clarify, always justify, then your emotional stability is no longer self-sustained. It becomes reactive. It becomes conditional on external approval or correction. The Stoic mind refuses this dependency. It chooses stability over explanation. It chooses composure over performance. It chooses alignment over approval. And this is where strength becomes visible, not through action, but through restraint. But restraint alone is not enough. Silence without discipline collapses into passivity. This is why radical self-discipline is the backbone of Stoic strength. Without internal structure, silence is just avoidance. With discipline, silence becomes power accumulation. Self-discipline is the ability to delay gratification when everything inside you demands immediate relief. It is the refusal to escape discomfort through distraction. It is the decision to do what is necessary, even when no external pressure forces you to do it. Marcus Aurelius did not rule effectively because he reacted well under pressure alone. He ruled effectively because his internal discipline was consistent even when pressure was absent. That is the difference between performance and identity. Most people can act disciplined when watched, when judged, when incentivized. Very few can remain disciplined in private, where no recognition is waiting and no consequence is immediate. Yet that private discipline is exactly where strength is built, because what you repeatedly do in silence becomes who you are in public. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Your life is not shaped by your intentions, but by your patterns. Not by what you claim to value, but by what you consistently repeat when no one is watching. This is why strong people reduce unnecessary speech. It is not just philosophical elegance. It is structural efficiency. Every unnecessary reaction is energy diverted from discipline. Every emotional conversation that leads nowhere is cognitive fatigue that weakens focus. Every impulse to explain yourself to the wrong audience is time stolen from construction. Silence protects discipline. Discipline reinforces silence. Together, they form a feedback loop that compounds strength over time. But there is still another pillar that completes this structure: immunity to external judgment. A person who depends on praise will always be unstable, because praise is inconsistent. It rises and falls with perception, trends, misunderstanding, and emotional bias. If your identity depends on it, you will constantly fluctuate. Similarly, a person who is crushed by criticism is equally unstable, because criticism is unavoidable. If your identity cannot withstand it, you will spend your life attempting to avoid inevitable discomfort. Stoicism resolves both by relocating identity inward. Your value is not determined by applause or condemnation. It is determined by whether you acted in alignment with reason, discipline, and integrity. When this becomes internalized, something radical happens. You stop negotiating your self-worth with external voices. You stop treating praise as identity confirmation. You stop treating criticism as identity destruction. You begin to operate from a stable center that does not shift with external noise. And from that stability, silence becomes natural. You no longer speak to defend identity, because identity is no longer under negotiation. You no longer react to every disturbance, because disturbance no longer defines direction. There is also a deeper layer, still: transformation of obstacles. Stoicism does not merely teach endurance. It teaches conversion. Every obstacle becomes material. Every setback becomes information. Every insult becomes data about perception, not truth. Every delay becomes a test of patience and refinement. This mindset changes everything. Life stops being a sequence of interruptions and becomes a continuous field of training. Nothing is wasted. Nothing is purely negative. Everything is absorbed into development. And when you adopt this perspective fully, you begin to understand why strong people speak less. They are not suppressing expression. They are refining input. They are filtering reality through discipline before responding to it, because reaction is cheap. But transformation requires depth. And depth requires silence. The more you grow into this way of thinking, the more you realize something paradoxical. The world does not become quieter. It becomes more predictable. Not because chaos disappears, but because you stop feeding it with unnecessary participation. You no longer chase every narrative. You no longer enter every conflict. You no longer dilute your attention across every opinion. And in that space, something powerful emerges: focus that is uninterrupted by emotional leakage. That focus becomes your advantage. And slowly, without announcement, without explanation, and without the need for recognition, you begin to embody a different kind of strength. One that does not argue for its existence. One that does not depend on being seen correctly. One that is content to build in silence while the world misunderstands the process. Because you understand something most people never internalize. Being understood is not required for progress. Being disciplined is. And discipline, when protected by silence, becomes unstoppable. What most people never realize is that silence, discipline, and emotional restraint are not personality traits. They are trained capacities. And anything that can be trained can also be weakened, eroded, or completely lost under pressure. This is where Stoicism stops being inspirational philosophy and becomes a demanding system of self-governance. Because it is easy to admire restraint in theory, it is far harder to maintain it when your ego is activated, when your reputation feels threatened, or when your mind is flooded with the urge to respond immediately. Modern life is not neutral toward this discipline. It actively works against it. Every platform, every feed, every notification system is designed around one principle: interruption. The economy of attention does not reward depth. It rewards reaction. It does not reward patience. It rewards engagement. And engagement, more often than not, is just another word for emotional stimulation. This creates a dangerous distortion in the average mind. People begin to confuse responsiveness with intelligence. They believe that replying instantly means they are sharp, aware, and in control. In reality, they are often just conditioned to be easily triggered. Stoic strength begins by breaking this conditioning. A strong person does not ask, "How quickly can I respond?" They ask, "Is responding even necessary?" That single shift removes an enormous amount of noise from life. Because once you stop treating every stimulus as a demand for reaction, your mind begins to recover its original function, observation. Before judgment, and observation is where real control begins. The Stoics understood that between stimulus and response lies a space. In that space lives your power to choose. Most people collapse that space until it barely exists. They feel something and immediately express it. They hear something and immediately react. They are not choosing their behavior. They are broadcasting their impulses. The disciplined mind does something different. It expands that space. It delays reaction long enough for reason to enter. And in that delay, emotion loses its monopoly over behavior. This is not suppression. It is governance. But governance requires resistance. Because every time you choose silence over reaction, you are going against a deeply ingrained psychological reward system. The brain wants closure. It wants expression. It wants relief. And speaking often provides that relief instantly, even when it is strategically destructive. This is why so many people sabotage themselves in conversations they could have simply avoided. They think they are defending themselves. In reality, they are discharging discomfort. The Stoic does not confuse discomfort with danger. Not every emotional tension requires resolution. Not every insult requires correction. Not every misunderstanding requires clarification. Some things resolve themselves with time. Others were never worth engaging in the first place. The stronger your mind becomes, the more selective your engagement becomes. And selection is power, because when you stop responding to everything, you start noticing what actually deserves your energy. You begin to see that most conflicts are not battles worth entering. Most debates are not exchanges of truth but competitions of ego. Most criticism is not feedback but projection. And once you see that clearly, your silence becomes intentional rather than reactive. But there is a trap here that destroys many who attempt this path. They mistake silence for superiority. They start withdrawing not from discipline, but from contempt. They believe they are above others, above conversation, above engagement entirely. This is not Stoicism. It is disguised arrogance. True Stoic restraint is not about distancing yourself from people. It is about distancing yourself from compulsion. You are not avoiding speech because others are beneath you. You are controlling speech because your mind is no longer owned by impulse. That distinction matters because if silence becomes identity instead of tool, it collapses under pressure. The moment ego feels threatened, the silence breaks, and often in an even more uncontrolled form than before. This is why Marcus Aurelius constantly returned to humility. Even as emperor, even with absolute political authority, he reminded himself that he was just another human being subject to the same limitations as everyone else. That awareness prevented his discipline from turning into arrogance. Real strength does not inflate identity. It stabilizes it. Now consider how this applies to modern self-image. People today are constantly constructing versions of themselves for external consumption. Online presence becomes performance. Opinions become branding. Even vulnerability is curated for impact. In that environment, silence becomes almost revolutionary because silence cannot be monetized easily. It cannot be validated instantly. It cannot be measured in likes or comments. It exists outside the reward loop, which means anyone practicing true restraint must be comfortable with invisibility, and this is where many fail. They begin with discipline, but abandon it when it does not produce immediate recognition. They expect silence to be rewarded. They expect restraint to be noticed. But Stoicism does not operate on external reward systems. It operates on internal alignment. The reward of silence is not recognition. It is clarity, clarity of thought, clarity of intention, clarity of direction. When your mind is not constantly leaking energy through reaction, it begins to accumulate focus. And focus, sustained over time, becomes execution. Execution becomes results. But none of that is visible in the short term. This is why Stoic discipline is incompatible with impulsive ambition. It demands patience that most people are unwilling to maintain when nothing appears to be happening externally, but beneath the surface. Everything is happening. Every time you choose not to respond emotionally, you are rewiring your behavioral patterns. Every time you delay gratification, you are strengthening cognitive control. Every time you refuse to engage in unnecessary conflict, you are reclaiming mental bandwidth. These are invisible gains, but they compound. And compounding is what separates fragile discipline from unshakable character. There is another uncomfortable truth here. Most people are addicted to emotional intensity. Not happiness, not peace, but stimulation. Drama, conflict, urgency, validation cycles, outrage, defense, explanation. These emotional fluctuations create the illusion of being alive and engaged. Silence interrupts that addiction. At first, it feels like emptiness, because the mind is no longer constantly stimulated by reactive loops. Many interpret this as boredom or stagnation, and they return to noise simply to feel movement again. But if they persist, something deeper emerges. A kind of mental stillness that is not dull but stable. Not empty but focused. Not passive but alert. This is where real strength begins to form. Because now you are no longer dependent on external turbulence to feel internally active. You can think without reacting. You can observe without being pulled. You can move without emotional distortion. At this stage, your actions become deliberate rather than compulsive. And deliberate action is far more powerful than reactive intensity. This is also where the principle of transforming obstacles becomes fully operational. When your mind is not constantly destabilized by emotional reaction, every event becomes usable. Criticism becomes feedback. Delay becomes refinement. Opposition becomes pressure testing. Nothing is wasted. Even silence itself becomes productive. Not because it is doing something externally, but because it is preserving internal order while conditions develop. And this is a crucial shift in understanding. Strong people are not those who act constantly. They are those who act precisely. Precision requires waiting. It requires withholding. It requires resisting the urge to act prematurely just to relieve internal pressure. Weakness rushes. Strength waits. But waiting is not passive. It is controlled readiness. A mind that has mastered silence is not absent. It is concentrated. And when it finally speaks or acts, it does so with weight that impulsive expression can never match. This is why, over time, people begin to notice something paradoxical about truly disciplined individuals. They speak less, but their words carry more consequence. They engage less, but their presence feels more grounded. They react less, but their decisions seem more decisive. This is not coincidence. It is structure. The structure of a mind that no longer wastes itself on everything. And in the end, this is what Stoicism ultimately demands. Not perfection, not emotional suppression, not withdrawal from life, but refinement of participation in life. You do not remove yourself from the world. You stop being controlled by it. You do not eliminate speech. You eliminate unnecessary speech. You do not reject emotion. You refuse emotional ownership. And in doing so, You reclaim the one thing most people unknowingly surrender every day: sovereignty over the self. That sovereignty is what creates unshakable strength. Not loud strength, not visible strength, not performative strength, but the kind of strength that does not need to announce itself because it is already anchored too deeply to be questioned by noise. And once that level is reached, silence is no longer something you practice. It is something you become.